right. This morning, I thought we would do something for personal ministries that is very relevant for what's going on in our community today. The fact that we are closed down after being able to be together for quite a while means there have been some changes. And as we think about personal ministries is about how we share Christ with others. And so this morning, I thought we'd talk about how we can help ourselves to stay healthy so that we are able to share it with others. Because when we're sick and in bed and not feeling well, it really does affect our ability to minister personally. So I hope that you will find this something really helpful for you today. A few months ago, I was listening to the radio, and I forgot to ask how many of you recognize this? Because not all of you might. Oh, let me share my screen, sorry. That would help. There we go. Okay, now, I was going to ask you if you knew what this was. I think there's some of us here that are old enough to recognize this. But as I was listening to the radio a few months ago, I thought I was listening to something like this, because this is what happened. It was a little question and answer thing on a national radio station, and the questioner asked, so this was an Ask the Doctor feature. Doctor, if I get kind of sick, but I'm not really sick enough to go to the emergency room, what can I do? And so the doctor responded, and this was his answer. He said, wear a mask, wash your hands, self-isolate. And I kept listening and listening, but that was it. And that's when I thought, this is not the most up-to-date information we have. We actually know a whole lot more about what you can do to keep from getting sick or sicker, and we're going to talk about some of those things today. And I have a real personal interest in this because back in April of this year, I actually lost my Uncle Mike living in England to COVID. And I have had several other elderly aunts also get sick with COVID, but my aunts did survive. One of them had no symptoms, and one of them was in the hospital briefly and never had to be put on a ventilator or anything like that. So I have had close relatives that had to deal with this, and I know that some of you have as well. And I think that what we're going to be talking about today is relevant to each one of us. So I really hope that this will be a help to you as we talk about this. So hang on one second. I want to do this for the people that are with us. Okay. All right. So I wanted to start by sharing something with you that was shared by one of our physicians earlier on in the epidemic when he was on a medical symposium, especially for healthcare providers. But I thought the information was information that all of us need to understand. So I wanted to share that. And the first thing is we need to understand a little bit about how COVID develops. The COVID infection is actually divided into 3 phases. Phase 1 ends kind of when we are exposed to someone and we develop the infection. We usually can go about 5 days, this is an average, without any symptoms after the virus has infected our bodies. In about 5 days, most people are getting some symptoms. That's when you're going to get like the cough or the fever or maybe a sore throat. And those symptoms go on for about 7 days, and then either your body kicks the infection during that week or you get sicker. About 80% of people early on in this epidemic were kicking it during that first week and not ending up in the hospital. But about 20%, which is 1 in 5, that's still a pretty high percentage, were ending up in the hospital. Once admitted to the hospital, the average progression of disease was 1 more day until their shortness of breath got worse, 1 more day until they were in adult respiratory distress syndrome, and then maybe 1 more day and they're in ICU on a ventilator. So once you're admitted to the hospital, your risk of having a positive outcome really drops. And so let's look at what this means for us on a practical basis. Because you see, the Creator has designed our bodies with an amazing immune system. And it has 2 main parts, the innate immune system and the adaptive immune system. The innate immune system is a non-specific kind of infantry in our body that goes out and attacks anything foreign the moment it comes into our body. The adaptive system is a very microorganism-specific system that attacks like a specific virus or a specific bacteria. But it takes longer for that part of the immune system to kick in. So when we're looking at COVID, we find that the most important part in the course of the disease to really fight it off is in those first 7 days with symptoms. During those 7 days is when our innate immune system is the part that's really actively fighting. Something unique about COVID is that it tends to dampen the response of the innate immune system. Like it actually attacks the part of the immune system that is fighting it. So it becomes extremely important for us to make choices that actually give the innate immune system a leg up, that gives it an advantage in its fight with COVID. And wearing a mask, washing your hands, and self-isolating might all be important things to keep from spreading it, but none of those things directly affect your body's ability to fight off the virus. So what I'm talking about today is what you can do to strengthen your body's ability to fight the virus. And I want you to know that the principles I'm talking about here don't just apply to COVID. They also apply to seasonal flu. They apply to colds and other kinds of bacterial and viral infections. So even if you're not worried about COVID, this will help you in every way to be more resistant to infectious disease, period. So let's talk about how we can boost our immune system, because that is actually the key to either resisting the infection completely or coming out of it on the top side. So I want to just share a few quick keys because our time is limited. And one of the first keys that I'm going to share is nutritional support for our immune system. The reason I chose this as one of the things to share is that we have 100% choice about what goes in our mouth. And that means that we actually have the power to impact the function and the efficiency of our immune system through our nutritional choices. So I want to emphasize some things that are just really important for everybody. And I'm going to do just a little quiz here. This first question I'm going to ask you is, how many servings of fruit have you had in the last 24 hours? And I want you to think back and count how many servings of fruit. A serving of fruit is about 1 cup of cut up fruit. It's a small apple, small orange. Okay. So how many servings have you had in the last 24 hours? You know, the average American, something around 10 to 12% of Americans do not get even the minimum required amount of fruit. And that minimum amount is 4 to 5 servings a day. So most Americans are not making that. I hope that you came out at better than 4 to 5 servings over the last 24 hours. And the reason I bring that up is that fruit and all of its colorful varieties, and that's why we need variety, has specific phytonutrients that our bodies need for the good functioning of our immune system. Very rich in vitamins, and those are very, very important for our ability to fight disease. Now, second question in our quiz, how many servings of vegetables have you had in the last 24 hours? Most Americans have very few servings of vegetables in a day. I used to teach a CNA class. I'd ask this question, and I'd have people that hadn't had any vegetables in 2 or 3 days. And that's when you count ketchup and French fries. And I don't really count those, because what we're looking for here are the vegetables that have the most amount of color in them and are least processed. Those are so rich in minerals, and these minerals are essential for the function of our immune system. And so we want to think about, are we getting fruits and vegetables? Between fruits and vegetables, combining those two groups, oh, and vegetables, by the way, 1 cup raw or a half a cup cooked is a serving. Between your fruit and vegetable servings, you want at least 7. And we know that optimal health requires more than that. So 9 servings, especially if you keep increasing on the vegetable side. Not everybody can tolerate a lot of servings of fruit, especially if they have any blood sugar problems, have diabetes, things like that. But vegetables, you can pretty much just keep going in terms of servings. And they have very, very important disease-fighting components that our bodies need to fight disease. And the third thing is avoid refined sugars. Refined sugars affect our immune system function directly and immediately. Simple sugars are absorbed through the stomach straight into the bloodstream. And as our blood sugar levels go up, our white blood cell function drops. In a fasting state, a white blood cell can kill about 14 bacteria an hour. After a meal with 25 teaspoons of sugar, that would be like a banana split, okay? It actually is so lethargic, it can't even manage to destroy one bacteria in an hour. And this depressed effect is going to last for 4 to 5 hours after the meal or the sweet treat. As we think about the holidays coming up, even this week, this is something to really remember because we can't afford to put our fighting infantry out of commission. And refined sugar does that directly and immediately. So read labels, pay attention to what you're putting in your mouth, and enjoy the wonderful sweet fruits that God has provided for us as a special thing. We can make beautiful fruit platters for holidays, for parties, ways that we can present things very nicely without having to have the sugar. And our number 2 key for today is water. We need water inside and out. On the inside of our body, water helps to thin our blood so we have better flow and better circulation. That means that the blood can carry the pieces of our immune system that need to fight in different parts of our body. It can travel more easily when we are well hydrated. So it's important for the function of many different parts of our body. And if you want to know how much water you need, just take your weight in pounds, divide that in half, and drink at least that many ounces a day. Weigh 160 pounds, that's 80 ounces. 80 ounces is 10 cups of water. So figure out what you need at a minimum to stay hydrated. But water on the outside is really important too. And especially when we're talking about the immune system, they had some really interesting reports come out of Scandinavia this summer. I believe this study was published about May of this year. And what they found that was in Scandinavia, that's like Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and Finland. They have very similar ethnic group, very similar habits, very similar exposures to COVID. But we found that Finland had half the mortality, like half the number of people died from COVID as compared to the rest of Scandinavia. And so that was like really interesting. They started looking at that, and what the researchers hypothesized is that it had something to do with the Finnish sauna practice. Even though all of Scandinavia uses saunas, in Finland they're actually quite religious about it. The average Finnish person is in the sauna 3 to 4 times a week. And there's enough saunas in Finland that the entire population of Finland could sit in a sauna all at the same time. Okay. So what we know about the thermal effects of heat on the body is that not only does it impact your resistance to COVID-19 and your ability to overcome it if you get sick, it increases monocytes, which are part of your defense system, and it dampens cytokine synthesis once these macrophages are activated. How many of you have heard of cytokine storms that kill people in COVID? Well, this heat followed by cold, heating the body followed by a short cold, this actually has the effect of dampening your cytokine response. And so you have a potentially lower risk of it getting into a cytokine storm. Now, maybe not everybody here has a sauna, but there are some really simple things you can do that use the same principle. One of those is a completely cold shower. They have found that a completely cold shower has a tonic effect on your immune system and really does something for pumping up your ability to fight disease. It pumps up your white blood cell count, but not everybody is willing or able to do cold showers. And it doesn't have to be very long. It can be just like 2 or 3 minutes. So another option is a hot and cold shower. This is a little bit easier to handle. If you've never done it before, it might feel a little bit shocking, but it's something that just about anybody can do. If you have a severe heart problem, talk to your doctor first. But a hot and cold shower is basically 1 minute of water as hot as you can take it, followed by 10 to 15 seconds of straight cold. Go back to the hot, then the cold, the hot, and then the cold. You do 3 changes. So 3 times hot, 3 times cold, end with the cold. Use a lot of friction as you dry off, keep your feet warm, and take a rest for half an hour after the treatment. What they've found is the treatment all by itself will activate your immune system, but if you rest for half an hour after the treatment, it will actually raise your circulating white blood cells from somewhere between 5 and 10,000, which is a normal level for most people, up to 30 or 40,000. So that means that you really have a lot more circulating soldiers that can go after bacteria or viruses in your body. So this is an extremely effective, very simple, low-cost thing that you can do. Things like hot foot baths and fomentations can also be very effective for helping to fight infections, fomentations for chest and respiratory infections. Now, I don't have time to explain to you how to do those here, but I do have a little booklet, which I can share with you digitally if you just give me a call. I'll be happy to email or text it to you. So here's my phone number. Go ahead and jot it down if you don't have it, 735-6078. Oh yeah, and the area code is 231, because it's a Michigan number.
If they don't have it, have them call me.
Okay, you can always call Virgil. He's got my number too. So if you just contact me, call me, text me, whatever, I'd be happy to send you a little booklet that describes how to do some of these simple treatments that can be really effective for your immune system. So, here was the description that I was just telling you about, but it's really important to get that rest in if you can. So it's a really good treatment to do before bed, but if you're starting to get sick, you're starting to get a sore throat, you're just feeling a little off, you can do this treatment 2 or 3 times in a day. And maybe you have to take it and go off to work. That's okay. If you can do it at night or sometime when you can rest after it, then that treatment will give you extra bonus. So I just want to close with 3 John 2, that very familiar wish of God for each of us. Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth. And remember, as Gandhi once said, health is wealth. And so every healthy choice, you're getting a little bit richer. So I hope that each one of you enjoys that richness that God wants to give you this week. Thank you.